My name is Eleanor Whitman. I'm 78 years old, and for 40 years I have kept a secret so heavy that sometimes I thought it might crush me in my sleep. I live in a quiet suburb in Oregon with my husband, Harold. We've been married for 56 years. We raised 2 children, built a small life together, and settled into the kind of slow, steady love people write greeting cards about. But what those cards never tell you is how much of yourself you bury to make a marriage work. That night started like any other. Harold had gone to bed early, and I was sitting in my armchair, sorting through old boxes of photographs. I told myself I was organizing them for the grandchildren, but really I was looking for one picture. When I found it, my hands began to tremble. It was faded now, the edges worn from time, but the face in the picture was still the same. His name was Samuel Reed, my first love. The man I was supposed to marry before life ripped us apart. For 40 years I had kept that photograph hidden under our bed, in a small wooden box no one ever touched. Harold didn't know. My children didn't know. To the world, Sam had been a fleeting summer romance when I was young. But to me he was everything. I held the picture to my chest, closing my eyes as memories rushed in like a flood. His voice, his laugh, the way my name sounded when he said it. And then I heard Harold's voice behind me. "What's that?" Froze. My heart slammed against my ribs as I turned. He was standing in the doorway in his flannel robe, his silver hair sticking up from sleep. His eyes weren't angry. Not yet. Just curious. "It's nothing," I said quickly, shoving the photo into my lap. But Harold's eyes narrowed. "Eleanor, what is that?" Before I could stop him, he crossed the room and plucked the photograph from my hands. His gaze dropped to the picture, and I watched his face change in an instant. His jaw tightened. His hand shook. "Who is this?" he asked, his voice low. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. He looked up at me, his eyes sharp and full of something I'd never seen before in 60 years of marriage. "Ellie," he whispered. "Who is this man? And why is his picture under our bed?" My chest felt like it was collapsing. The secret I had buried for 40 years had just risen to the surface. And my husband was staring straight into the face of the love of my life. Harold held the photograph like it was something poisonous. His hand trembled as he looked back at me, his voice tight. "Eleanor, who is he?" I swallowed hard, my throat dry as sand. For 40 years, I had rehearsed this moment in my nightmares. The moment Harold found out. The moment my whole life cracked open. "His name is Samuel," I whispered. My voice shook. "Sam Reed." Harold stared at me as if the name itself were a betrayal. "Samuel," he repeated slowly, tasting it like it was bitter. "Why do you have a picture of him hidden under our bed? For how long?" I couldn't meet his eyes. 40 years. His breath caught. 40 years. His voice rose raw and cutting. "Ellie, that's our entire marriage. Who is he to you?" I closed my eyes, tears sliding down my cheeks. "He was my first love." The room went silent. I could hear the old clock ticking on the wall, every second slamming into my chest like a hammer. Harold's voice dropped to a whisper. "First love." "He was more than that," I said quickly, my hands twisting in my lap. "We were going to get married. We had everything planned. But then, he went overseas. His plane, it went down. They told me he was gone, Harold. They told me he was dead." Harold's face softened for a split second, and then hardened again. "So what did you do? You married me and kept him alive under our bed." My tears fell faster. "I buried him in my heart. Thought I had to. But I couldn't let go completely. I kept that picture because..." My voice cracked. "Because a part of me never stopped loving him." Harold staggered back a step, his hand gripping the back of a chair like he needed it to stay upright. His eyes were wet now, though he tried to blink it away. "Ellie," his voice broke. "All these years, was I just second best?" I stood reaching for him, but he stepped back. "No, Harold, listen to me. You were my life. You gave me children, a home, love. I loved you. I still love you. But you loved him more, Harold said quietly. The words hit me like a knife. I tried to speak, but the sound of tires on gravel outside made both of us turn. Car door slammed. Harold's face twisted with something unreadable. I called Claire, he said suddenly. Froze. What? Our daughter. I told her to come home. I told her something was wrong. She's going to be here any minute, Ellie. And you are going to tell her exactly what you just told me. My knees felt weak. Harold, no. She doesn't need to know this. This isn't her burden. Harold's eyes burned. It's her family. It's her life. She deserves to know who her mother really is. The knock on the door came sharp and quick. My heart slammed into my chest. Mom. Dad. What's going on? Claire's voice rang out from the porch. Harold didn't move. He just stared at me with cold, wet eyes and said, Open the door, Ellie. Tell our daughter about the man you've loved for 40 years. I stood frozen, my hand hovering over the doorknob, as my whole life teetered on the edge of unraveling. My hand shook as it touched the cold brass knob. Behind the door was my daughter, my sweet Claire, who had spent her whole life believing her parents had the perfect love story. When I opened it, she was standing there in her work blazer, her eyes full of worry. Mom. Dad. What's going on? She stepped inside and stopped short when she saw Harold clutching the photograph in his hand. Her gaze flicked to me, then to the picture. What is that? She asked cautiously. Harold's voice was sharp. Ask your mother. Claire looked at me, her brows furrowing. Mom. I wanted to run. I wanted to hide the way I had for 40 years. But Harold's stare held me in place. My secret had waited long enough. I took a deep breath, my voice barely a whisper. Claire, this is Sam Reed. He was the man I loved before I married your father. She blinked, confused. Okay, but why is Dad holding his picture like it's a bomb? Harold's voice cracked. Because your mother has been hiding that picture under our bed for 40 years. Claire's head snapped back toward me, her eyes wide. 40 years. Mom, is that true? Tears blurred my vision as I nodded. Yes. Her lips parted but no sound came out. I could see the pieces of her world shifting, breaking apart right in front of me. Mom, she said softly, her voice trembling. You've been married to Dad my whole life. You built everything together. Why would you? She stopped, her throat tightening. Why would you keep another man under our bed? I stepped toward her, my hands out like I could hold her world together with my touch. Because I thought he was dead, Claire. They told me he was gone. He was my first love, and when I lost him I thought I lost myself. Then I met your father and he saved me. He gave me a life, a family. I thought I buried Sam in the past. But a part of me, I couldn't let go completely. Claire's face crumpled as she whispered. So you loved him more? The question sliced through the room. Harold's eyes glistened, waiting for my answer. I shook my head quickly, my voice desperate. I loved both of them differently. Your father was my safe place, my partner. Sam was my fire. When you're young, you think that fire is the only kind of love that matters. When you're older, you learn that love can also be steady, quiet, lasting. Claire's lips trembled. But you never told Dad. I couldn't, I whispered. I was afraid. Afraid of hurting him. Afraid of losing the life we built. The room was silent except for Claire's shaky breath. She turned to Harold. Dad, what are you going to do? Harold stared at the photograph for a long time before answering. I don't know. I don't know who my wife really is anymore. Those words shattered something inside me. Claire's tears slipped free as she looked back at me. Mom, do you still love him? After all this time. The truth sat heavy on my tongue. I closed my eyes and whispered the words that would change everything. Yes. Claire's sob broke the silence. Harold turned away, his shoulders shaking. And I stood there, my secret finally out, watching the life I had built crumble like sand slipping through my fingers. When Claire's car disappeared down the road and Harold's taillights followed soon after, the house sank into silence. It was the kind of quiet that pressed against your ears until you couldn't tell if you were breathing too loud or not at all. I sat there with the photograph in my hands, staring at Sam's face like it might speak to me. His eyes were the same as they had been all those years ago. Warm, steady, full of promises we never got to keep. 40 years. I whispered the number under my breath. 40 years of a secret life folded into a single photograph. The knock on the door made me jump so hard I dropped the picture. For a second I thought it might be Harold coming back. Or Claire, ready to scream or cry or both. But when I opened the door, it wasn't either of them. A man stood on the porch, maybe in his early 60s, with a face weathered by time and travel. He held a thin, worn-out envelope in his hand. His voice was low and careful when he spoke. "Mrs. Eleanor Whitman." "Yes," I said, my heart hammering. He held out the envelope. "This is from Sam Reed. He told me if I was ever in this part of the country, and if I found you, I was supposed to give it to you." The world tilted slightly under my feet. "I don't understand." "Sam's dead." The man shook his head, his eyes soft with something I couldn't name. "No, ma'am. He lived. For a long time. He's gone now. But not back then. He made it home. He just didn't come for you." I stumbled back a step, clutching the envelope like it was burning my hands. "He was alive." My voice cracked. The man nodded. "He said he saw you had a family. Said you were smiling in the newspaper. He didn't want to ruin your life." Tears blurred my vision as I tore open the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a single folded letter and a photograph. The photo wasn't the one I kept under the bed. This one was different. I was in it. I was laughing. My hair was windblown, and Sam's arm was just barely visible around my shoulders. I didn't even remember him taking it. I unfolded the letter, my eyes scanning the words as my knees threatened to give out. "Lee, if this letter reaches you, it means the life I lived without you is finally over. When I came back and saw you had built a new life, I couldn't bring myself to take it away from you. You looked happy. I loved you too much to ruin that. I never married. Never tried. You were my beginning and my end. I let you go because I thought it was the kindest thing I could do. I hope you forgave me even if you never knew. Love always." I sat on the porch step, the letter trembling in my hands. The wind picked up, and for a moment, I swore I heard his voice in it, soft and low like it used to be when we lay in the grass under summer stars. Sam had been alive. He had loved me until the end. And he had stayed away for my sake. Behind me, the house felt colder than ever. Because now, Harold didn't just have to face a ghost. He had to face the fact that my ghost had been living all along. And I had to face the truth. The love of my life hadn't been buried in the ground. I had buried him in my heart. I sat at the kitchen table, the letter from Sam spread out in front of me like a wound that refused to close. The edges were soft from my fingers clutching it through the night. I hadn't slept. Couldn't. When Harold came home that morning, he didn't slam the door. He didn't say a word. He just walked in, set his keys on the counter, and stared at the letter. His eyes moved from the handwriting to my face. "What is that?" His voice was flat, like all the anger had burned away, leaving only ash. I swallowed hard. "A letter. From Sam." Harold's jaw clenched. "Sam. He survived the crash," I whispered. The words felt unreal even as I said them. "He made it back. He saw me with you, with Claire. He said he didn't want to ruin my life. He stayed away all these years." Harold let out a sound that was somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "So while I was building a life with you, while we were raising kids and paying bills and growing old together, he was out there, loving you in silence." Tears blurred my vision. "Harold, please." "No," he slammed his hand on the table, his voice suddenly sharp. "Don't you dare ask me to feel sorry for you right now, Ellie. Do you know what this feels like? To know that every time you looked at me, a piece of you was somewhere else. With someone else. I reached across the table, my fingers trembling. I loved you. Love you. That never changed. His eyes glistened, but his voice was like steel. But you loved him more. The words hit like a blade. I couldn't answer. I couldn't lie. Harold stepped back, running a hand over his face. For a moment, he looked so tired, so broken, that my heart ached in a new way. You should have told me, he said softly. 40 years ago. You should have told me before we built a life on a secret. I shook my head desperately. I was scared. I thought I had to bury it. I didn't know how to love you and mourn him at the same time. Harold's shoulders sagged. He stared at the letter again before whispering, "Do you still love him?" My lips parted, and for a heartbeat I couldn't breathe. Yes, a part of me always will. He closed his eyes, and a single tear slid down his cheek. When he opened them, there was no anger left. Just a deep, aching sadness. "Then I don't know if we can come back from this," Harold said quietly. The room spun. My chest tightened like something was crushing me from the inside. "Harold!" My voice cracked. "Please don't say that." He turned away, his hand on the doorframe. "I need time, Ellie. I don't know who we are anymore. I don't know if I can live with his ghost between us." And then he walked out, leaving me alone with the letter, the photograph, and the truth that had finally destroyed everything I thought was safe. The house was too quiet without Harold's footsteps. For 56 years, his presence had been the heartbeat of our home. Now, every creak in the floorboards reminded me he wasn't there. I sat on the edge of our bed, the same bed where the photograph had lived hidden beneath us for 4 decades. The wooden box lay open on the nightstand, the picture of Sam beside it. Next to that, the letter. 2 pieces of paper that had ripped my life in half. Claire called that afternoon. I almost didn't answer, but the sound of her voice on the machine was shaky, and guilt drove me to pick up. "Mom." "Yes, baby," I said softly. She hesitated. "Dad came by this morning. He looks so broken. What happened? Are you too?" Her voice cracked, and I could hear the fear in it. "Claire, we're not over," I said quickly. "He just needs space. He needs time to understand. This isn't easy for him." "It's not easy for me either," she whispered. "You were my safe place. My example of love. And now I don't even know what's real anymore." Her words sliced deep. "Claire, listen to me. What your father and I built is real. The love we have, it's real. I made a mistake hiding the past, but it doesn't erase what we've shared. You hear me?" She was quiet for a long moment. "Do you still love him?" I closed my eyes, my hand pressing against the letter. "Yes, part of me always will. But Claire, loving someone in the past doesn't erase the love I have now. Your father is my home." When we hung up, the silence returned. But this time it felt heavier. Later that evening, a knock came at the door. My breath caught, thinking it might be Harold. But when I opened it, it wasn't him. It was Sam's brother, Peter. I recognized him instantly despite the years. He held a small box in his hands. "Mrs. Whitman." His voice was gentle, careful. "Yes," I whispered. "I heard about Harold leaving. I'm sorry for all of this. Sam never wanted to hurt you." He extended the box. "Before he passed, he asked me to bring you this if I ever found you." I took it with shaking hands. It was light. When I opened it, there was only a single piece of jewelry inside. A thin gold ring with a tiny engraving inside. My breath caught when I read it. "My forever Ellie." I pressed the ring to my lips as tears poured down my cheeks. Peter's voice was soft. "He never stopped loving you. Not once." When he left, I sat on the bed, clutching the ring. I had spent 40 years trying to bury my past under the weight of the life I built with Harold. But now the past and the present were colliding. And I didn't know if my marriage could survive the wreckage. I held Sam's ring in my palm until my fingers went numb. The engraving, worn with time, cut into my skin like the words themselves were trying to etch into my bones. When Harold finally came home 3 days later, the sound of his footsteps on the porch nearly broke me. I ran to the door before I could think, the ring still clenched in my fist. He looked older in just 72 hours. His eyes were bloodshot, his shoulders heavy with something I couldn't name. He stepped inside but didn't come close. "Harold," I whispered. His eyes landed on the ring in my hand. "Is that from him?" "Yes," I said softly. "His brother brought it. Sam, he kept it all these years. He wanted me to have it." Harold let out a hollow laugh. "Of course he did. Even dead, he's still between us." "No," I said quickly, stepping closer. "Harold, listen to me. He's not between us. He's a part of me. He always has been. But you," my voice broke. "You are my life now. You are my every day, my every breath. Sam was my past. You're my present. You're my home." Harold stared at me, his face unreadable. "Then why do I feel like I've been competing with a ghost for 40 years? Tears burned my eyes. "Because I was too much of a coward to tell you the truth. I was afraid you'd leave me. Afraid I'd lose the best thing that ever happened to me." He ran a hand over his face, his voice low and raw. "Ellie, I don't know how to forgive this. I don't know how to live with it." I opened my hand and held out the ring. "Then take it. Throw it away. Burn it. Do whatever you need to do. But please, Harold, don't throw away us." For a long moment, he just stared at the small piece of gold. Then his eyes met mine and I saw something crack in them. "I don't want to lose you," he whispered. "You won't," I said, my voice breaking. "Not if you don't let me go." He stepped forward, and when his hand closed over mine, covering the ring, I sobbed into his chest. His arms wrapped around me, not as tight as they used to, not yet, but enough to remind me of what we'd built. "We can't erase him," Harold said softly against my hair. "But maybe we can learn to live with him. Together." I nodded through my tears. "I want that. More than anything." For the first time in days, the air in the house shifted. It wasn't healed. Not yet. But it was hope. And for the first time in 40 years, I let myself believe we might survive the weight of the past. Harold and I sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the letter and the ring between us like two ghosts we couldn't send away. The air was thick with everything we hadn't said in 5 decades. He rubbed his temples. "I keep thinking about all the years, Ellie. All the dinners. All the nights we lay in bed, and you were holding on to him in the dark. How do we move forward knowing this?" My voice was soft. "By telling the truth. No more secrets. Not about Sam. Not about anything. Harold, you deserve my whole heart. Whatever's left of it after all this. It's yours." His eyes glistened, but his jaw stayed tight. "And if the part of your heart that belonged to him never comes back?" I reached across the table and took his hand, pressing it against my chest. "Then I will love you with everything that's left. And I will spend the rest of my life proving that's enough." For a moment neither of us spoke. Then Harold's lips pressed into a thin line. "Claire needs to hear this. From both of us. If we're going to mend this family, she needs to know the truth doesn't destroy us." That evening we invited her over. When she walked in and saw us sitting side by side, her eyes darted between us nervously. "Are you okay?" she asked cautiously. Harold's hand squeezed mine under the table. "We're not okay yet. But we're trying." Claire's eyes flicked to the ring. "Is that his?" "Yes," I said quietly. "Sam sent it to me before he died. He wanted me to have it." Claire swallowed hard. "Do you still love him?" "I'll always love who he was to me," I admitted. "But Claire, your father is the man I chose every day for 56 years. And I'll keep choosing him until my last breath." Her eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how to process all this. It's like finding out my whole life was built on something else." Harold reached for her hand. "It wasn't built on a lie. It was built on love. Complicated love. But real. What we have as a family, it's real. For the first time in days, Claire broke down. She sank into my arms like she was a little girl again, crying into my shoulder. "I just don't want to lose us," she whispered. "You won't," I promised, holding her tight. "Not if we hold on to each other." When she left that night, Harold and I sat in silence again. But it wasn't the heavy kind this time. It was the kind that comes after a storm, when the sky is still gray but the rain has stopped. Harold picked up the ring, turning it over in his hand. "I don't know if I can wear this weight forever, Ellie. But I think I want to try." I covered his hand with mine. "Then we try. Together." For the first time, the ghosts on the table didn't feel quite so heavy. The house felt different now. Not healed but softer. Like the air itself was tired of holding its breath. Harold and I had spent the last 2 nights talking until the sun came up. About Sam. About us. About the pieces of ourselves we'd hidden, not just from each other, but from ourselves. On the 3rd night, Harold stood at the bedroom door, the photograph in his hand. He held it up, staring at Sam's young face. "This man loved you," he said quietly. "I can see it. I can see why you loved him back." I swallowed hard, my voice barely above a whisper. "He was my beginning, Harold. But you were my life." He turned to me slowly, his eyes glistening. "Then let's make sure this doesn't destroy the end of it." That night we sat on the bed, the same bed that had hidden Sam's face under our feet for decades. Harold set the photograph on the nightstand, not back in the box, not under the bed. "No more secrets," he said firmly. "No more," I promised. For the first time we talked about everything. About the first time Harold knew he loved me. About the day I found out Sam's plane had gone down and the way my world ended that night. About the moment I chose to love Harold anyway, even when part of me was still broken. It was painful. But somewhere between the tears and the trembling hands, there was healing. Around midnight, Harold reached over and took my hand. "Ellie." "Yes." His voice cracked. "Do you regret it? Marrying me?" I leaned forward, pressing my forehead to his. "Never. You saved me, Harold. You gave me a second chance at life. If I hadn't met you, I don't know if I would have survived losing Sam. You were my miracle." A tear slid down his cheek. "Then let me keep being that. For however long we've got left." I kissed his hand, my voice breaking. "I want that more than anything." When we finally lay down, Harold wrapped his arm around me, just like he had for 56 years. But tonight it felt different. There was no ghost between us anymore. Sam's memory would always live in my heart, but tonight, Harold held the rest of it. And for the first time in 40 years I felt like I could breathe again. Spring came early that year. The air was soft, carrying the scent of blooming lilacs through the open window of our bedroom. I sat on the edge of the bed, the photograph of Sam in my lap. The same one that had been hidden under us for 40 years. Harold came in quietly, a mug of coffee in each hand. He set one beside me and sat down, his body warm against mine. "We've lived with him in this house a long time," he said softly. He nodded. "Too long in the shadows." He reached out, his hand covering mine over the photograph. "It's time to let him rest." Tears pricked my eyes. "How do you say goodbye to someone you never really lost?" "You don't," Harold said gently. "You just make peace with the love you had. And then you make room for the love you still have." That afternoon we drove out to the old oak tree by the edge of town, the place Harold had proposed to me all those years ago. I brought Sam's letter and the ring. We stood together under the sprawling branches, the wind soft and warm against our faces. I held the letter to my chest. "Sam, you were my first love, my fire, and I will carry you with me always. But it's time for you to stop haunting me and start resting where you belong. In my heart, not in my marriage, not in my home." Harold took my hand, his thumb brushing away a tear. "You were her beginning," he whispered. But I'm her forever. I placed the letter and the ring at the base of the tree. The wind stirred, and for just a moment, I swore I heard Sam's voice in it, soft, warm, and free. When we drove home, the house didn't feel heavy anymore. Felt lighter, as if a chapter had finally closed. That night, as Harold and I lay side by side, his hand found mine under the covers. "Do you still love him?" he asked quietly. I smiled through my tears. "Yes, but I love you more." He kissed my forehead, and in that moment I knew the truth. Love doesn't have to erase the past to honor the present. Just has to choose every single day. And that night, as the shadows faded, I chose Harold. Chose us. I chose the life we built from broken pieces and quiet strength. For the first time in 40 years, there was no ghost between us. Just love. Speech balloon. If this ending touched your heart, hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories of love, loss, and redemption.